Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk or Watch List, some trivia, and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. I'm one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by
John.
And the one, the only, the multiple personalities.
Kevin Wendell Crumb. No. Internet daddy, internet darling. Anthony here for the second to last time.
Woo! Sad to say. Here's what we're doing this week. We are going to switch Chop Talk to a little bit of watch list, maybe a little bit of reading list if you're feeling nasty. Then we're going to play trivia, and for our main discussion, kind of a last rites still, just not designed by any one of us in particular. We're talking about Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Masque of the Red Death. Spooky stuff.
Ooh, chain rattle.
There we go. That's what we need. Bring it back.
Classic.
All right, so that being said, we'll dive into that watch list. Stay tuned.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into what we've been watching and reading and diddling, well, how were you guys?
I'm doing pretty all right. I am having a great time. My sister and my niece are in town, and my soon-to-be brother-in-law. And getting to have them in town is a lot of fun. My niece is
Kind of obsessed with you.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
awesome.
great.
When you said brother-in-law, you kind of did like a weird wop. Is he one of those wacky waving inflatable flailing tube men?
He is indeed.
Did you meet him at the car dealership? Love at first sight.
Good. Well, I'm happy to hear it. And yeah, your niece is super adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward to you spending more time with him and watching that kid grow. She's like a what do you call it? Like a bean sprout. Is that what they say?
Sure.
Is that what they say?
Somebody's probably said it.
She's
That's
growing
good enough for
fast.
us.
Yeah.
I feel like every time you see a kid, even some of our friends that have kids, I'm like, that's your kid? And then that's your kid now? Like that, I always remember them that little.
Yeah.
That's still how I think about like your niece.
Yeah.
Like every time I see her, because the first time I saw her, she was so small, and I still have those pictures of like her in your lap and like
on your shoulder.
Yeah, and I'm just like, she was so tiny, and then the last time I saw her, I was like, she's like grown
10,
ass
yeah,
person
fucking
almost.
Weird,
like,
dude.
Yeah, and I probably won't see her again until she's fucking 40 years old or something, and I'm remember me?
It's like, no, dude.
No, dude, get the fuck away from me.
Creepy.
But how are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm surviving.
Yeah.
You know, as the great Reba McEntire once sang, "I'm a survivor."
Happy to hear it.
Yeah. And you mentioned diddling earlier, and I just wanted to clarify on the air that I did not have sexual relations
With
Anyone?
No, just in general.
okay, right on.
Just between now and the last podcast, I did not have sexual relations.
So I know we said we weren't going to do news, but there was one thing I wanted to mention, and I feel like the franchise has gotten to the point where it's kind of science fiction fantasy at this point, but they did release the trailer for the
Schindler's List 2.
special of the Continental,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
the John Wick prequel little mini-series.
If you didn't feel like 4 John Wicks was enough for you, if you didn't feel like an upcoming Battle Arena spinoff was enough for you, now there's a fucking TV show.
Likely some form of a John Wick 5 at some point, probably.
Oh, I'm sure of it. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. Trailer looked cool. I like that it's a little bit before. It doesn't look like the Continental is established, so it looks like it's establishing that kind of part in the lore of that franchise.
It'd be really interesting if they had some shots they could do that with. You know, some establishing shots.
Tire boss.
Yeah.
This is how it's done.
Know. This is how they do it at the Continental, buddy.
All right, so what's everyone been watching outside of the show stuff? Anything spooky?
Do we want to go in a circle jerk?
Yeah, circle jerk.
Dutch Rudder.
I'll let
Triple Dutch Rudder?
I'll let the OG host start.
Okay.
Recommend something to me that I will legitimately enjoy. And if I don't, I can blame it on you.
Watching this show on Prime, just started it yesterday.
Prime.
It is a procedural cop show comedy, and it's called Deadlock. And it's either New Zealand or Australian, and it's fucking hilarious.
Oh, it's a bit of odd behavior, isn't it?
Yeah.
Both of those accents are fucking hilarious
Yeah.
to me. So
Is Reese in it?
Who?
Reese Darby?
No.
Jumanji.
No. He is not. But yeah,
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
it's pretty funny. So I recommend that. That's my firstie.
How
Okay.
did you guys feel about my Kiwi accent just now?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good?
Is that
Pretty good.
offensive?
Pretty solid.
Kiwi?
Yeah.
I listen to the Weekly Planet podcast. That's what Big Sandwich is, by the way. They're Australian. Is that Kiwi? Is Kiwi Australian or is that New Zealand?
I think that's easy.
New Zealand. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Now you're offensive.
Moving on.
John.
Having not answered your question, but dug myself a deeper hole.
So I got the opportunity about a week and a half ago to watch the animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that's currently out in theaters.
Son of a bee.
Mutant Mayhem, and that shit is fucking amazing.
Really?
So animation style, super hand drawn looking. Like everything has like colors and lines that seem to kind of move out of like where they're supposed to, but it gives it this really like charming vibe, similar to how the comic book style of the Spider-Verse films kind of has. This is definitely Paramount's answer to that, I would say. But the script is hilarious. There's some really touching moments. The acting is really great, and like they came up with a really cool story that I feel like ties in a lot of like if like you grew up with the Turtles at all, a lot of great like characters and fan moments. I just thought it was fantastic. I would highly suggest checking it out before it leaves theaters.
Yeah, I've heard only good things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm not consistently checking movie show times like I used to back in the day. But things just like slip right under my radar, and suddenly they're in theaters and everybody's talking about them, and I'm looking at Letterboxd getting like hella FOMO about like I gotta go fucking see that Ninja Turtles movie because I'm just seeing 4 stars, 5 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars.
Yeah,
like people love it, and people have not always been kind to Ninja Turtles movies.
Michael
I
Bay.
love the Ninja Turtles, but that is actually a beautiful segue into my first recommendation because the actor who plays or voices April O'Neil in that movie, Ayo Edebiri, is one of the cast members of FX's / Hulu's The Bear. I just finished the show. It was actually really funny. I had watched the first season, thought it was really good, but wasn't like clamoring to watch the second season. I thought, okay, I'll give it a bit of time. Well, my boss had been watching it, and there was some episode in the second season that had such an impact on him that he came to work in the morning meeting the next day and was like, okay, everyone's assignment is to watch the second season of The Bear, or at least this episode, and we will discuss it as a team. And if you guys need Hulu accounts, like we'll like pay, we'll pay for trials or whatever, like to get, I don't know how, if all of that went the way that he had planned, but I took it to heart and was like, cool, I got to watch that fucking second season. And it absolutely blew me away. They really stepped it up. The entire cast and crew for the second season, I was happy and sad tears like every single episode because there's so much just inspirational shit between the characters, and then just moments that like really hit me in a really personal place because a lot of it deals with characters who have past trauma and anxiety, and they're kind of trying to work as a team and find out what their passion in life is in order to make this restaurant a success. And it's just a killer show. I mean, all the raves that and all the Emmy awards and everything, like, they're well deserved. I highly recommend the show. It's also half-hour episodes, and the first season is 8 episodes and the second's 10, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in the second season and she absolutely crushes it, and it plays a very heartbreaking character. So
maybe she'll get an Emmy. She'd be halfway to that EGOT all in one, like a 12-month period.
I think she's been musical in the past. She could probably get is that the Tonys?
Yeah.
Is that the only thing she doesn't have?
Well, so
She have an Oscar?
yeah, she this year
Oh,
for Everything Everywhere All at Once,
right.
the movie
That's
that's currently sitting behind your head.
That's why he didn't think about it, because it was
I never look behind me. I'm always forward, baby. All right. Well, I haven't been watching anything else unless it was for the show or really shitty TV, because sometimes you just gotta unwind with crap. But I've been reading, so I thought I would share some of those with you.
I don't know, Tone. That's pretty GAY, as our commenters on the YouTube would put it.
Yeah. Fuck
Being
that
gay is tight, bro.
Yeah, nothing wrong with being gay.
Being gay is tight.
This is The Midnight Club. Have you seen it? Have you heard about it?
Seen it.
Yep,
Heard
seen
about
it.
Yeah, Christopher Pike. What Flanagan does with this story blows my fucking mind. Book's not bad. Show's 10 times better. Sorry, Christopher Pike, if you're listening.
He is he is indeed the master of adaptation. We had a long conversation about just like how he is able to find what the core human elements of a story are and really bring those to the forefront and make all the characters people you enjoy being around. And
Some of the characters are the same. It's kind of a snapshot. Some of the stories they tell are the same, but really it's like a week or two of these kids' lives in the hospice, and there's not really any of that supernatural element to it. So it's just kind of really fucking depressing.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Other one, The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. This is a book that I just saw. I judged it by its cover because that's what fucking covers are for. And the woman that wrote it, Sunyi, is on the spectrum, so that also interested me since, as some of you may or may not know, that's kind of my job for the last 8 years. This is about people that are kind of like vampires, but they have book teeth, and then they eat books. And when they eat that book, it has a certain taste depending on the genre, and they are able to absorb the knowledge of the book. So if they need to learn a language, they can eat a book in a different language and then absorb that language. Super fucking cool. And then some of the people are born with, I guess, a defect where instead of books, they want brains. And so there's a group of people called brain eaters that are going around sucking the brains out of people. And then when they do that, they absorb the person's essence. So the person doesn't die, but they're just kind of zonked.
It reminds me of like Sylar from Heroes.
Yeah.
Where he would take
That's
part
exactly
of the brain
where
and,
my brain
absorb
went.
their powers and their essence. Yeah, or like Rogue from X-Men.
And then the last one, I'm still making my way through it.
Making his way downtown.
Ghost Eaters. I don't know why I got 2 Eaters books. I
we
actually
know
did
why.
buy these the same
That couldn't
day.
be more on brand, for my friend.
This one is by Cleold Chapman. This is about a group of friends. One of them dies, and in order to kind of stay in contact, he was an addict, so there's a lot going on under the surface of this book. But they develop this drug called Ghost, and when they take it, they can see ghosts. So it's almost like a Sixth Sense pill. And so this girl is getting haunted, and it's so far has some really creepy shit, and I'm into it. And it's been really inspiring outside of the reading realm, where we've been talking about making movies and making shorts, and that one is probably the most horror related that I've mentioned, and it's pretty good. I recommend it so far.
Yeah, I was when you described the general premise.
General premise.
Thank you. Of I've accepted it now after all these episodes. When you were describing that to me, I was like, "Yep, that sounds right up my alley." If it doesn't completely veer off course by the end of it, and you enjoy the whole thing, I definitely want to borrow it off of you because this isn't my recommendation, but while I've been really, really enjoying Never Let Me Go, it's making me go like, I need to do another spooky horror book.
Yeah, it's good science fiction though.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a fucking fantastic book. But not finished with it, so I'm not gonna recommend it yet.
All right, so for me, as far as things that are in the, that probably about caps it off. But I've got a couple things that I can veer off into. The first thing before I pass the torch over to you has been something that I should have watched a long time ago. That I've been really enjoying the shit out of. I've only got a few episodes left of it, and that is Ted Lasso. Holy fuck, is that a goddamn show? It's hysterical. The people who are involved in it are fantastic. The writing is super sharp. The subject matter, you don't have to give two flying shits about sports to care about this show.
About football.
Yeah. And
Football.
And it is so funny, so touching, and really tackles some difficult subject matter.
Especially that second season.
Yeah.
Is it only 2 seasons, or did they go 3?
Three.
They have 3, yeah. And also really inspiring.
Yeah. I believe and believe.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if anyone's seen that, but there's a yellow post that says "Believe in Blue." Now it's become super mainstream, which is cool. So even at one of the schools I go to, they have a banner. Teachers have the shirts. We got posters in our room, all independently, because
Mrs. Jigsaw's teacher has the Believe poster on their door for their classroom.
Yes, I hit mine every time I walk out. You gotta believe.
Yeah, it's weird because for that show, I have heard people I trust say that it's amazing. I've heard other people whose opinions I trust, like on YouTube or in podcasts, who say that it's like the fucking cringiest, like worst show that they've ever seen. And so I just kind of like there are a lot of people who don't like Ted Lasso, or like on Twitter like posting clips from it and being like, are they fucking serious with how like corny this is? So I was getting kind of mixed messages about how good it was, but one of the things that I've really enjoyed about The Bear is how inspiring it can be, like how it makes me go like, oh yeah, it makes me like want to be a better person and want to be like a better creator. And if that's the kind of messaging of the show is like inspirational and feel good, I think I'm at a point in my life where I would appreciate something like that. And so yeah, I'll have to check it out.
It's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, I just you know how hard it is, especially for TV shows, for me to like decide I'm going to get invested, and I usually have to hear from like 10 different people that it's worth watching before I go, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. Let's see.
That's all I got. So if you got a few or whatever you want to do.
Okay, yeah, I'll just rattle off.
You got more? Or?
So I've got one more if you want to go back and forth, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, we can just bounce back and forth. I have a couple movies. First I wanted to recommend is not a fantastic movie, but a fun movie, especially if you're like me and you are itching for spooky season and you really want something that feels Halloween. I would recommend checking out Cobweb. This just came out this year. I'm not on Letterboxd. I was clicking on the screenshot that I took.
If I had a nickel, my brother.
Like, why are you not fucking...
This stars a really good little kid, Woody Norman, but it's got Lizzie Kaplan basically playing Annie Wilkes like she did in that Castle Rock season. It's got Anthony Starr, Homelander from The Boys, Cleopatra Coleman from Infinity Pool, Luke Busey, who is a kid who looks just like a little Gary Busey. So I assume part of the same family, and they all have those fucking teeth. But yeah, this is it's about an 8-year-old boy who is plagued by a mysterious constant tapping from inside his bedroom wall. One of his parents insists that it's all his imagination. As his fear intensifies, he believes that his parents could be hiding a terrible, dangerous secret and questions their trust. This is a very strange movie. It's really well shot, well edited. It's edited by Kevin Greuter, who edited pretty much all the Saw movies and then directed like a couple of the last shitty ones. But and it's got a really good creepy atmosphere. In the third act, it gets a bit too generic, so that's why I can't say that it's a fantastic movie. But I thought that the performances were really weird and interesting and fun. And the thing that won me over that I texted you about was like literally the first thing that pops up on screen is a title or is a card that says 1 week before Halloween. And I went, oh, fuck yeah. I love nothing more than a horror movie that takes place on or around the holiday. And then the movie is all, you know, like pumpkins, and they live like with a pumpkin patch in their backyard, and it's all trick-or-treaters and stuff, and spooky stories about trick-or-treaters that disappeared. And that kind of also won me over a bit more. But yeah, I would check it out if you're in the mood for something spooky Halloween themed. It got me to break out my Halloween the franchise box set.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, because the other day when we had those weird clouds and a little bit of thunder and rain, I was like, I gotta take advantage of this and put on something that has the Halloween mood. So I actually ended up rewatching both of Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. I was just like, I know at least
Mascism.
There's some, yeah. Well, I watched some of his commentaries because while I don't love those movies, I think he's a really intelligent guy and he's a really smart filmmaker. He just for some reason doesn't know how to rein his own shit in and make it a legitimately really good movie outside of like The Devil's Rejects. But anywho, what else do you got?
All right, so I've been watching this YouTube channel for a while. They're called Secret Base. Once again, on the sports theme. If you like weird analyses and things like that, they do really great things like that. I think, but
that's the kind of shit I love to fall asleep to, where it's like this is something I'm kind of interested in, but I want to fall down that rabbit hole as I drift off.
I think I recommended an episode of one of their series called Dorktown. It was an episode that was specifically about
Is that where you were born?
Yep. Where I live, baby. About a person who flew a plane into a stadium a long time ago.
It was Harrison Ford.
I think you sent me this video. I watched it. It was fucking crazy.
Yeah, so the same guys they a couple years ago did an entire history of the Atlanta Falcons, the football team. They've recently started over the course of the last couple of days releasing episodes on the entire history of the Minnesota Vikings. So that's one of the things I'm currently watching right now.
That's my dad's absolute all-time favorite football team, and he's obsessed. So
You
I'm
should
gonna send that to him.
You should A, send it to him, and B, you should watch it so that way you can talk to him about stuff.
Don't tell me how to live my life and what to do with my dad, but that's a great idea.
But it's funny how they tie in like little things of like pop culture from those sections of time, but the way that they break down sports in like this really nerdy analytical way, just it scratches all the dumb shit in my brain.
Well, that's the
have
stuff that
such
I
a good time
legitimately
with
get like
it.
really, really interested in, like the Moneyball type of stuff, where it's about like the stats and the like, because that's stuff I never realized as a kid, is that like how much of sports is all about just like knowing the numbers, and knowing how like different players stack up based on, it's like video games, like knowing what their skill tree looks like and their stats, and being able to like compare those things and run them through an engine, and have these, you know, a lot of mathematicians who end up with careers in sports because they can crunch those numbers and tell people how to bet and all that crazy shit.
Yeah, if you like those types of things, I would highly suggest checking out their series on the Falcons, on the Seattle Mariners,
And on the Winter Soldier.
And then there was a pitcher that was like really like he was like a weird guy in the 80s. His name was Dave Steeb. And they have an entire series on his career and like his pursuit of trying to pitch a perfect game. And it's a fantastic series. Highly suggest it.
I like it. Let's see. What is my last thing that I would like to recommend that you all check out? Let's go with a couple quick Hitchcocks.
The cock!
So I recently ended up watching the movie Rebecca from 1940.
Ooh.
And I thought it was a fucking masterpiece. I don't know how I had not seen it before, but there's also a million Hitchcock movies that I haven't seen. And to tie this into our bonus episode, the maid in this movie, her character is who Mel Brooks told Cloris Leachman to base her character in Young Frankenstein off of, was this character in Rebecca. But it is basically all of the hallmarks of the best Hitchcock movies, but with a layer of like gothic creepiness and fog over it. And so to me, it was just, you know, immediately one of my favorite Hitchcock movies. So I would absolutely recommend it if you haven't seen it. I think a lot of these older black and white Hitchcock movies are available on YouTube. There's a lot of really good classics channels that archive and upload these older movies that have passed into public domain. Or
That's how we watched Masque of the Red Death this week.
yeah, and then real quick, I double featured both of Hitchcock's versions of The Man Who Knew Too Much. The original version is black and white. It is famous for Peter Lorre's performance, and Peter Lorre is just creepy and amazing and awesome. You see a lot of cartoons that have been based off of him, and you know, you got the creepy bug eyes and everything. But that movie was great. A little bit confusing. Didn't absolutely love it, but I thought it was pretty good. Then the remake that he did like 30 years later with Jimmy Stewart and Doris Day loosely follows the same plot line, but the way Hitchcock put it when he was asked like how he felt about the two movies was the original was made by a very talented amateur, and the remake was made by a professional who knew what he was doing. Both Hitchcock, just in different time periods. So that was really fascinating to watch, see what he did differently, what he improved on, and what he changed. And also just Jimmy Stewart immediately is going to take it way up in the stratosphere for me. Yeah, he keeps saying Marrakesh throughout the entire movie. Yeah, because that's what
I love a good Jimmy Stewart saying Marrakesh.
Yeah, he's just like, gotta get out of Marrakesh.
Have you seen The Man Who Knew Too Little?
I haven't, but that was popping up every time I searched these movies to try to rate them on Letterboxd. But
Starring Bill Murray.
Yeah, so I'm kind of bouncing around trying to figure out which if I want to follow through and watch the rest of Hitchcock's movies, but I also kind of watch
For the next 6
So-
months.
That's an endeavor.
do I want to commit that time? Do I want to watch more Friedkin? Like, I'm kind of bouncing around trying to figure out exactly what I want to do to enrich my time with the magic of cinema.
There you go. All right. Well, that's all I got. Anything else for you guys?
No, I think that'll about wrap me up.
Well, that'll wrap it up for our special edition of Watch List on this week's Chop Talk. And we'll go ahead and move into some trivia.
Trivia!
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
Continuing this week for trivia, we are doing the movies trivia game. So if you haven't seen the other episodes, how this works is we're going to read a category, then go in a circle, reading a question to each other with me, Tone to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me.
In typical fashion.
Yeah, for the second to last time. Are we ready, fellas?
Ready as I'll ever be.
And if I'm correct, you are streaking.
I am streaking.
He's streaking!
Don't call too much attention to it.
First category is comedy animation. John, what is Stanley Kubrick's How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, otherwise known as?
Dr. Strangelove.
That is correct.
I was trying to describe that movie to Adrian recently because one of
Good
the
luck,
Offspring's
brother.
music videos is from like their new album or something is called like Slim Pickens Rides the Bomb to Hell, and all the animation and it's a really cool video, but it's all based on that movie. And it's got like the guy with swinging the cowboy hat and going on down on the bomb. And so I was trying to kind of describe why that movie was amazing to her, and I just like wasn't really able to describe it in any way that made sense.
Yeah, what a film. Anthony, who plays gun-toting Jewish convert Walter in The Big Lebowski?
John Goodman.
Is indeed John Goodman.
I don't bowl on Shabbos.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
You're out of your element.
Oh my god, another masterpiece.
So funny.
Tone, who plays Ebenezer in Mickey's Christmas Carol?
Like the voice actor? Oh, no, is it a real... I don't know this movie. Who plays Ebenezer?
I'll help you a little bit.
Scrooge McDuck.
Yes, that is the answer. I was going to say, I'll help you a little bit by saying it's not asking for the voice actor. It's asking for the cartoon character. I mean, the very real rich duck.
Who dives into metal coins.
That's been my dream ever since. All right, great. So we're all on the board. We're moving into action adventure. John, who both wrote and starred in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Who both wrote and starred in, but not directed. That would be Quentin Tarantino.
That is correct, sir.
Oh,
Good job.
Quentin Footlover Tarantino.
I don't know if I told both of you or if I just told him, but I listened to the commentary with him and Rodriguez, which was hilarious because Tarantino is just like a chihuahua, just who will not shut the fuck up the whole time, and Rodriguez is just like a bloodhound, just like chill, just like, yeah, man, and when they got to that scene where Tarantino has Salma Hayek's foot in his mouth, Rodriguez was like, this is a great example of the writer servicing the actor.
That is pretty good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Anthony, who co-stars with Patrick Swayze in Point Break?
Wow. It's Keanu. Keanu Reeves.
Whoa.
This bus. I gotta surf this wave with this bus.
On this computer.
Tone.
Yep.
I know Kung Fu.
In the first Die Hard movie, why is Bruce Willis in L.A.?
Because everybody's someone in L.A.
So it was bugging me the other night because I always hated that song New York goes, or the Empire State of Mind goes, New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. And I was like, that line makes no fucking sense. There's like what is a preposition or whatever hanging at the end. I was like, it makes sense if it was concrete jungle where dreams are made, or concrete jungle of which dreams are made, or something like that. Somebody on Reddit explained that it's because there's a slight pause, but the next line is supposed to be in quotes. So it's like where dreams are made of, there's nothing you can't do, is like the attitude of living in New York. And I was like, I guess that makes sense.
But that also makes the lyric kind of whack.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good lyric either way. I mean, a cool song, but anywho, I was giving you some time to think.
But I was focused on what you were saying. What is it?
Sorry. In the first Die Hard movie,
Oh.
why is Bruce Willis in L.A.?
To visit his wife?
Close.
Her Christmas party?
Okay, you're close enough that I'm going to give it to you. It's to see his family at Christmas. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
that I think you got it close enough.
Yep.
All right, great. So we're all 2 for 2. We're moving into
2 for Tuesday.
drama musical. John, what Tim Burton musical features meat pies and an English barber turns serial killer?
The best pies in London.
Joanna.
I'm really loving the renditions here. That would be Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street.
That's correct. There's a show on Amazon Prime called The Horror of Dolores Roach. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
It's about a woman who was in prison for like 16 years, gets out, and then it's like a Sweeney Todd, like a kind of modern day retelling of Sweeney Todd in a way.
That's cool.
There's like
Interesting.
some people being baked into empanadas.
Say, speaking of Sweeney Todd, there's currently a on Broadway version of Sweeney Todd that's going around right now, with Josh Groban as
heard about
the
this, yeah.
titular barber.
Weird.
I mean, I'm sure he's fucking great.
Yeah, I'm sure he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I would kill. I would kill and put people in meat pies.
He's like that. He's hitting the little lever to make the chair go up, and he's like, "You raise me up."
Anthony, who plays a consigliere Tom Hagen in Godfather and Godfather Part 2.
The fuck is a consigliere?
And this is my fitness consigliere, Michelle.
Michelle. Blazer.
My hat looked like a shark fin. In The Godfather 1 and 2, who plays consigliere? What was it again?
Tom Hagen. I would just ignore consigliere and just focus on who is Tom Hagen.
And who was found?
Yeah. That's one of life's great mysteries.
I'm just trying to remember everybody except for the main players in The Godfather. Like trying to remember who the fuck else is in that movie, those movies.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
What does that mean?
It's a quote from The Godfather.
Never seen it.
I'm gonna say Jimmy Caan.
It's Robert Duvall.
God damn it! It was almost there in my brain space. Tone. Who directed the Oscar-winning Forrest Gump? Who was Gumpin'?
Oh, fuck. Ooh. Is it Zemeckis? Robert?
There you go. Last name Zemeckis. First name Robert.
All right. Great. So we got threesies and Anthony's got twosies? Doozy
Yes,
of a twosie?
Yes.
Rude.
I told other people about my secret code debacle.
Oh, yeah?
And people,
You finally feel that you can open up about that?
yeah, people also think I'm just as equally an idiot as you guys. All right, horror sci-fi. John, which bridge officer dies in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan? Is it Bones, Spock, or Sulu?
We watched this on the show, right?
We did.
Did we?
We did. I believe we watched it because of you, if I remember correctly.
Because of you, I had to watch The Wrath of Khan.
I believe it's Mr. Spock.
That is correct. For the card sweep.
Yeah.
Live long and prosper.
Anthony, true or false, Samuel L. Jackson appears in the seminal classic Jurassic Park.
Appears?
Appears,
This
yes.
dude's got at least a handful of scenes. He says, hold on to your butts.
Yeah.
So yes, 100%. I don't think we mentioned during our Exorcist 3 review, he's in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up in the dream sequence when fucking George C. Scott sees Fabio and he's like wandering through and he's talking to the little boy and he's like, I'm sorry you got
We also
murdered.
buried the lead and didn't mention that Fabio is in that film too, but
Yeah, we just completely skipped that dream sequence. So sidebar about the Exorcist 3 in reference to last week. But he's like the blind guy that's like sitting on the bed, and he like shouts some random thing. It was one of the first handful of movies he was in before, like Pulp Fiction and all that. But his voice is dubbed.
Yeah, because
so
the reason why it seems like
him.
it doesn't make any sense is because somebody dubs over his voice. So like the whole point of a Samuel L. Jackson existing in a film, you don't get. Plus, I mean, it was the year that he started actually acting in like big films, because that was also the same year that he was in Goodfellas.
Samuel Jackson was in Goodfellas?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. It's also in a really like a very brief, brutal part.
Dude.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's fucked, and it's crazy to think that Jurassic Park.
You were
was,
late
like,
for your own fucking funeral. Pop.
Yeah, Jurassic Park was like right before he blew up, because he did Pulp Fiction right after that and just exploded.
Yeah,
his career has been. Yeah.
Anyway, John.
You were correct. Yes.
Thank you. Tone. In what? In what 2018 movie does a mother create a diarrhea of her daughter's death? I mean, sorry.
A diorama.
a shoebox diorama.
Did you just remember a thing from Family Guy and now it's breaking your brain?
Yes,
oh no! What have I done?
I have no idea what's going on.
In 2018, in what 2018 movie does a mother create a diorama of her daughter's death?
Come on, baby. Ooh.
A diorama?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's when you shut out your ass.
But it's liquid. No, it's so a diorama is like a miniaturized like reimagining.
It's like what you would make in school if you wanted to represent like a biome or
Yeah.
Is
a
it hereditary?
California mission. It is.
Okay.
That's why I said, "Come on, baby."
Yeah,
Diarrhea is hereditary. It runs in your genes.
This is off the rails.
it works though.
Yeah.
You've made worse jokes work, and that
That's-
one actually works.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Thank you
know what I
very
mean?
much. I think I should win trivia for that.
We'll see about that.
All right, so
Sweet.
we got the 4Zs and he's got the 3Zs, and we're going back to reality with comedy and animation. John, who
There goes
plays
Rabbit.
Bluto in National Lampoon's Animal House? Is it John Candy, John Belushi, or John Goodman?
That's the George Orwell one, right?
You didn't have to give me anybody. It's John Belushi.
That is correct, yes.
That movie, while a lot of the comedy holds up, it is also very problematic.
That's why I've still not seen it, because I've heard an equal number of people being like, Animal House is really, really like not cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Racist?
sexist,
Yeah.
racist, probably all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right on. We still got the point, so.
I'll take the point. Anthony, Meet the Fockers and Little Fockers are sequels to what film?
I have nipples, John. Can you milk me?
Yeah.
Meet the Parents.
It is indeed Meet the Parents.
Which was, I think I probably talked about this on the show, my first exposure to Robert De Niro.
Weird.
I mean, not an awful.
I mean, it makes
like,
sense with the time period. Like, you know, I was born in '92. It's not like I was big on Goodfellas when that came out or anything.
Yeah.
Like, and that was when he was getting into that period of like, I'm going to start transitioning into. That was like him dipping his toe into the comedy waters that he has not been able to get himself out of since then.
I think my first De Niro movie was The Score. Did you ever see that? With the old Hulk. What's his name? Norton? Edward Norton?
Yeah.
Like
I've seen that one.
Robbing a place.
That sounds cool.
That was pretty cool.
I think.
I don't know if it holds up, though. Marlon Brando's in it, too.
I think my first De Niro. I think it might have also been Meet the Parents.
But I remember people getting like really, really excited about that movie because of the lie detector scene with him and Stiller. Like, people thought it was so fucking funny, and I think now I'm realizing it's because people were so used to seeing De Niro in a certain mode that I think they were just really excited to see that. Like,
It's not as like slapstick yet in that one. Like, I feel like it's more of a subtle comedy, and that's why I think the first one holds up really well.
I've never seen the sequels because I was like, I like Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really need to see the sequels.
When I used to go to my jazz on the weekends, that was one of the only DVD or VHSs that I had, and so I just used to watch that shit over and over.
Is it Owen Wilson that gets a volleyball spiked into his face?
No,
Somebody does, right?
one of the women.
Yeah.
And the brother's like, I told you void backward on your forehead.
Tone, Lost in America stars Julie Haggerty and what actor who is also the director?
Lost in America?
Lost in America.
Someone who is an actor and also a director. I have one based on the genre. I have one place I would go here.
What's the genre?
Comedy animation.
Lost in America. Home Alone 3, Lost in America. But drop the Home Alone 3, just Lost in America. Stars Julie Haggerty and what actor who is also the director?
I don't know. Mel Brooks.
My guess would have been Woody Allen.
No, this is crazy. It's Albert Brooks.
Really?
Yeah. 110%.
How funny.
No relation, but fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So you were 50%
I should have
there.
just said Brooks.
Yeah.
You'd have been like,
I know. He does that. All right. So, John, you got 5.
okay.
And Anthony and I got 4. And you were going into action adventure. This is actually kind of funny considering your last action adventure question. Who stars in Robert Rodriguez's Desperado? Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Roddy Rodriguez.
You said Desperado.
Desperado.
Don't you come to your shanties.
Is it Antonio Banderas?
That is correct. Yeah. You know they're still supposed to be making a machete kills in space? Like that's still supposed to be happening?
Well, Rodriguez, like, he does the weirdest shit because he'll vacillate between doing, like, kids movies, which, I mean, I love the first 2 Spy Kids movies, but, like, legitimately as an adult, I've rewatched them, and I think they were super fun, but then he just did that, didn't he just do that Hypnotic movie with Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
That everybody shat
did he?
on? Yeah. And then before that, he did a weird, like, low-budget indie flick about his time in college psych experiments or I don't know. He's got a very
Weird.
strange filmography.
Mm-hmm. He definitely does.
But there was a while where he was like the shit.
Puss in Boots.
Anthony, who plays the rough-edged adventurer Jack Colton in Romancing the Stone?
Ooh, I know. Because he's also in Jewel of the Nile.
Well, that didn't help me at all. I was really hoping that the movie you said next was
I
gonna
was
give me
worried
some
that the
clue.
movie you said next was going to do exactly what he was asking for.
No, they're a pair.
Romancing
Pair of jewels.
the Stone is not a movie that I've seen, and I don't even know who's in Romancing the Stone. So I'm just going to try to think of who I would picture, like who is the actor I think of when I think of the name Jack Colton. I'm going to say Pierce Brosnan.
I mean, Pierce Brosnan probably would have been pretty cool in this role. However, it is Michael Douglas.
Okay. Can't say that makes me want to rush to watch Romancing the Stone, but
Well, fuck you.
If you ain't chewing Big Red, fuck you.
not feeling like getting romantically stoned. Tone.
That's a
What
bit tight.
actors' films include Kickboxer, Street Fighter, and Universal Soldier? It's like Barbie. It's had so many different jobs.
Dolph Lundgren.
It is Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Don't worry, I always get them mixed up in my head too.
But isn't he in some
JCVD.
of those?
Probably, but it's JCVD.
It is JCVD.
Is that my dog?
Yeah, probably. My dog, JCVD.
That's my dog.
Jean-Claude Van Dog. Jean Dog Van Claude.
All right, so that puts me at 6.
Yeah.
And then,
Us at 4.
yeah.
Hate it.
And we're... Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I got mixed up. Okay, sorry.
We only got to get through
I was trying to
two
get
more
the-
episodes of this show, man.
I know. I was trying to make sure the dogs were not barking. Anyway, we're moving into drama musical. John, what leading man was in Spy Game, The Horse Whisperer, and All the President's Men?
The Horse Whisperer?
Is it Robert Redford?
Oh, shit. That is correct. And that cinches it, son.
He loves horses.
He's
And
a good
horses, too.
How do you whisper to a horse? Like,
Well, you don't say Frau Broilet or whatever the fuck it is.
Anthony, who coaches Hilary Swank in $1 Million Baby?
I would assume her coach.
You got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel swanky? That is Clint Eastwood.
Indeed, Clint Eastwood.
Nice.
Tone. True or false? None of the robbers get out alive in the 1995 film Heat. I don't like these questions that end up kind of spoiling the movie in asking them, but if you guys haven't seen Heat,
Spoiler alert.
skip
I've
this
not
question.
seen Heat,
Great fucking movie.
but I know that.
and it's got a great cast.
Is it Mann? What's his name? James? Is it James Mann?
Michael Mann.
Michael Mann. He wrote a sequel novel.
Yeah, I would be actually really interested in checking it out, but that's Kilmer, De Niro, Pacino.
I'm gonna say true. No one gets out alive. Did I say it right?
It is false, and in parentheses it does tell you who survives, but I'm not going to reveal that to you because it is a spoiler.
Smart play.
All right.
There's a scene very early on in that movie where De Niro walks somebody out to a car and then pops the trunk and it's lined with plastic. And I was like, that's the fucking most gangster shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
So
All right.
it doesn't get dirty.
I gotcha. I don't care about the score anymore because John already won, and we're moving into horror and sci-fi. John, what candy snack does E.T. enjoy?
That would be Reese's Pieces.
That
Reese's
is
Pieces.
correct. Is that a full sweep?
That is a full sweep.
Dumb, Daniel.
Elliot. Anthony, who do the Thorns adopt in The Omen?
Damien, the Antichrist.
Read the card. Literally. It says Damien, parentheses, the Antichrist.
Beautiful.
Crazy.
I think I should win for that. Tone. You're never going to get this one. It's very difficult.
You know, you're never going to get it, which means you're definitely going to get it.
Yeah, which means it's the easiest question under the sun. Room 237 is a documentary about what movie? And remember our legal obligation.
Yeah.
Show's ending. Who are they going to sue? The Shining!
Oh, shit!
Somebody, boom, knocked on the door.
FBI, open up!
That's going to be fucking...
Why is the FBI here for copyright infringement?
Has anybody here watched Room 237?
Yeah, I think it's a terrible, terrible documentary.
Yeah, it's not great.
Is it really?
Yeah, because it's just a bunch of crackpots who have come up with their own weird-ass theories about how every can of creamed corn in the background has some connection to, like, Native American tribes and the moon landing, and it's just like, yeah, the movie has a lot of hidden messages and stuff, but they're not that mysterious. he wasn't putting fucking Illuminati shit in the movie, like, or maybe he was.
Maybe he was.
Watch the
Well,
documentary and
congratulations, John, on a full sweep.
Thank you.
You got one more episode that you can get a streak going,
Yeah.
and then that is it. Hope I win next
the
week.
game is gonna be so afoot. It's gonna be feet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll
Thank
wrap
you.
it up for trivia. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna dive into Masque of the Red Death, and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to dive into Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and the Masque of the Red Death. What are you doing?
It's my Elvira cosplay.
Okay, yeah. Your boobs are equally as big. Nice jugs.
Yeah, nice knockers.
And we're going to get started with talking about Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. This one directed by James Signorelli. Written by Sam Egan, John Paragon, and Cassandra Peterson herself. If you don't know, that's the woman behind Elvira.
Wait, what? Elvira's not a real person?
Starring W. Morgan Shepard, also Cassandra Peterson, if that wasn't clear. Daniel Green, Jeff Conaway, Susan Kellerman, and Eddie McClurg. And that's kind of all you need to know about the background of this movie. It's a quick 96 minutes. And this was made because, I don't know if people know this, but she was famous because she hosted movies. Like, she would do late night spook 'em
Elvira's
ups.
Movie Macabre.
Yeah. And so she would be kind of, if you're familiar with what Bob Briggs is doing, that thing, but back in the day, she took over from Vampira. And there's a whole back and forth with them. But then she was so popular that they tried to make a movie. This movie tanked when it came out, and now has a huge cult following, and people love it. And
It popped off as soon as it went to VHS through rentals and through
That's
just.
how you know a movie's really good.
I mean, it didn't even earn its budget back, so it didn't make a profit at all. Like, this movie lost money.
Yeah, and I know from what I was reading today, the original idea was they wanted to give Elvira her own sitcom, but Peterson had always had the dream of taking Elvira onto the big screen, and she felt that if she got stuck in prime time with a sitcom, that she would never end up being able to make the movie that she wanted to make. So this was her first attempt at doing that, and she actually wanted Tim Burton to direct this.
I saw that, yeah.
But he was busy with Beetlejuice.
Which is funny because while I was watching this movie, I was like, this feels a lot like Beetlejuice in some of the jokes. The line where she's like, I'll do this, I'll stand on my head, like listing things off. He does that in Beetlejuice. He's like,
Yeah, I guess because she has a cameo in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
yeah.
And she had such a great time and thought that the vibe of this movie matched what he did with Pee-wee. And so she also wanted Paul Rubens to cameo in this movie, but he was busy with Big Top Pee-wee. So there's like a Pee-wee doll in her room in the movie that's like his little nod, his little cameo, because like I think I had mentioned when he passed away recently, she posted a bunch of pictures of them together, and they were really, really close friends.
I think they were in the Groundlings together.
And most of the people who are in this movie are people from the Groundlings that she worked with.
Yeah. So if you don't know the plot of this movie real quick, sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to do what you're about to do.
Go ahead.
So the plot of this film, essentially, what is that Elvira is trying to take the show that she's doing and turn it into a show on the Vegas Strip. She has that process already set in place. Somebody buys the studio that her show is being shot at and is a disgusting pervert. She quits and really makes that guy feel like a fucking heel, which he deserved. And then from there finds out that the show that she's been banking on for going to Vegas, that she needs to put a down payment on that bad boy to make it happen.
50K.
So in order to make the 50K, very plot convenience like, and which is commented on by the characters in the film, she comes into some sort of an inheritance, and thinking that there's a good chance that it could be money, she goes to find out that it's actually an old spooky house.
And a dog and a recipe book.
Mm-hmm.
Big plot points.
When she gets to the town of Falwell, it's Falwell, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think it's a reference to Jerry Falwell, who was an evangelical preacher who started the Morality Club or whatever that the one in this movie is based off of. So it's a town of prudes.
Yeah.
It's a town of conservative people who don't like the look, the smell, everything about Elvira, except for the horny teenage boys. And when she gets to town,
Some of the teenage girls, too.
some of the teenage girls, yeah. And because everybody loves Elvira, except for those old, and they deep down.
Yeah, what is her name? Her name's like something Pariah.
Yeah.
Chastity Pariah.
Yeah, Chastity Pariah.
Elvira's like, I thought that cleared up. Yeah. And so when she goes to the town, she finds that she has a creepy Uncle Vincent, who was originally supposed to be played by Vincent Price.
Named after him. And
named after him.
Talbot?
Mm-hmm. And he ended up turning down the role because of the raunchiness of the content in the script. So that would have been just a crazy connection if we had gone into these movies not knowing that.
It still is, though. Like, she mentioned, I mean, there's a character named after Vincent Price. She also mentions Roger Corman.
Well, it turns out this movie was produced by New World Pictures, which was Roger Corman's production studio. So there's that, and then I watched it.
So
I think you did
we
too.
accidentally connected these two movies.
Yeah, and I watched it for the Elvira's 40th, very special, very spooky, spectacular, whatever. Yeah, so she had her little bookends and interstitials and stuff, and she makes like a reference to Jane Asher, who plays the main Francesca character in Masque of the Red Death. But anyway,
yeah, so that's on Shudder if you're interested. It's her doing her classic macabre thing and introducing the movie, talking in the middle, and then doing a little bit at the end. It's not too much extra. I think it only adds like maybe 7 minutes to the movie.
And it's already a short runtime anyway.
and like a fine wine.
Goddamn.
like a fine wine.
Yeah. We don't need to proceed down that dusty road any further. Goddamn.
But yeah, so then the movie is kind of just her misadventures around this town as she kind of tries to find work and
her uncle wants the recipe book.
Yeah, he wants the recipe book, which we immediately know means it's got to be some sort of magic spell book or something. And she finds out that her mother, who was the real mistress of the dark, and there's magic that she's inherited, and wacky hijinks ensue. If you haven't seen Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, I didn't know if I would like this movie, because like Haunted Hills I thought was fun as like a Corman homage.
Yeah.
But this I like really legitimately thought was great.
Yeah.
And again was that perfect Venn diagram cross section that I could get behind. That was
or in front of
of horror, humor, and horniness. And yeah, it was awesome.
Very campy, very slapstick.
Breaks fourth wall a few times.
Yeah, and she even mentions it in the special thing where she's like, "Look, we're in a warehouse. We don't have a fourth wall." It's like, no, literally, we don't have a fourth wall.
Yeah, we couldn't afford it.
Good stuff. So even that's funny. But yeah, I mean, this movie tanked. I could see why. But now she's a fucking icon.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know if it's just because we've been in such a dry spell with good comedies over the past like 15 years. Like Bridesmaids was the one comedy that people still say like they're still making good comedies, and it's like Bridesmaids came out
in 2011 or maybe older,
long ass time ago. So
shit, really
old news. Yeah, and but yeah, going back and watching this, I was legitimately like laughing out, which doesn't happen very often when I'm watching funny stuff. I'm usually like, that's funny. Yeah, I was cackling throughout this entire movie from start to finish. Like I had just not every joke obviously landed, but the ones that landed, I really, really appreciate. Like I thought it was great.
There's one where they're doing the marquee, and I was like, okay, something's coming. And I thought it was.
She's like,
perfect.
that's not how matinee is spelled. And then, dude, yeah. And as soon as it drops down, it's like, how to fuck. I was just like flipping backwards in my bed laughing because I was like, that's so fucking funny.
And another cool coincidence, the screening, the movie that they're screening during this movie is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, they should have been. The tomatoes should have been throwing people at the screen or something like that. Yeah, so she puts together, which I would love to go to something like this with her hosting, but I was like, how lucky are the people in this town that she ends up getting she kind of falls for the brawny man. Mm-hmm. Like straight up, he's just the brawny man named Bob, who was named after the man who helped design the Elvira character, was I think in the Groundlings with Peterson. Used to do her wig styling for all of her appearances, and he had passed away like right before they made this movie. So his character name and the dedication at the end is to that man. And apparently Peterson had a horrible time with the wig stylist in this movie because she was so used to him doing the wig styling and how he did it that she, in hindsight, was like, yeah, I was actually I was way too tough on the stylists because I was just going through an emotional thing about having lost that connection that was so much a part of the Elvira character.
Grief.
Yeah. And that kind of brings up something that I had mentioned to you, Tone, yesterday about how kind of heartbreaking the Elvira character ends up being when you, like, especially in this movie, and when you know anything about Cassandra Peterson's actual life. I haven't read her entire autobiography, or her memoir, but I know enough. I've read enough of it and know enough about her life from interviews and stuff. I know she dealt with a lot of sexual harassment and straight up assault throughout her entire career, and that it happens constantly throughout this movie to the Elvira.
Happens within like first 5-10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it's what
and then
gets
just
the movie
continues.
Started is this guy assaulting her, grabbing her breasts, and luckily in every situation here, which I'm sure was kind of a way of
protecting herself.
Well, just a way of her expressing what she would have liked to have done to those men in real life. Elvira tends to beat the shit out of them, kick them in the balls. I love when she throws the guy at the station into the news desk, and he's like, the last thing before they cut from the live feed is him just going, "You said she was a nympho." And it cuts. But yeah, that's just most of the men are fucking disgusting in the movie, and they grab her and do inappropriate things, but she typically is able to, like I said,
take the power,
and it's not every man in the movie. Like, I think the Bob character is actually really wholesome, and I was glad.
Almost too much for Elvira.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Brad Pitt was one of the contenders for playing one of the teenage boys in this movie.
Yeah,
And
but she's like, he's too hot.
She was like, he's too hot. There's no way people will believe that I would be into Bob when Brad Pitt's standing there the whole time. Apparently, on the casting call thing, she wrote "yum yum" next to his name. So,
And the house that she lived in for a long time in Hollywood, he ends up buying
yeah,
in real life.
Yeah, weird little connection between Pitt and Elvira. But I
Yeah,
like
one of
it.
the guys that she had problems with in real life was
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wayne Newton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like a big fucking creep,
Yeah, I know. She said Wilt Chamberlain
if I remember correctly.
essayed
Yeah.
her at a party in the 70s. But yeah, it's very tragic. And so I think on the one hand, that kind of added a layer of sadness while watching the movie, but also kind of like, well, you know, she never like gives up her power to a man throughout the movie, and she is the truly like she's the mistress of the dark. Like, she's a badass, and everybody who comes to recognize that is like fully on her side. And it was cool to see all the teenagers like see through all the bullshit of all the older adults in the town. And like, I love when even though they're all staring at her, them all banding together to help paint the house, and they do it in all those like crazy
montages,
and all the crazy colors and everything. And so like I was like, yeah, at least she's like taking back the power in this movie. But it just kind of made me
sad
just about Cassandra Peterson. I mean, I'm happy that obviously she's
doing great now.
Yeah, as an icon, she's doing great, and she seems super happy.
She came out relatively recently, within like the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, but that plays into like what you were talking about, where it's like it's not just the guys in this movie, like the girls too.
They understand what she's there to do, and they understand that she's like, cool.
Yeah,
and that she can help them and this town get away from being so shitty, I guess, and closed-minded.
Yep.
I know some of the cool highlights, the part where she's a baby is so fucking funny,
dude. Because you see the picture in the beginning of her as a baby. She's like looking at a picture of herself, and I was like, "That's fucking funny." I thought they had just like drawn on a picture of a baby, and then when they show the baby,
like in full Elvira makeup,
and the baby is just like staring at like with these big eyes, because it's like, "What the fuck did you do to me?" You get that, and then she plays the redheaded aunt character or whatever. Like in that scene, you don't really see her face, but that's her, and then the portrait that is of her aunt was painted by the man that I was just talking about who had passed away. And it was legitimately just a portrait of Cassandra Peterson.
What was your experience like with it, John?
I mean, like I said, I think that it's a lot of fun, and like I said, I did also kind of get a little emotional about just kind of like
it's hard to watch in some scenes.
Yeah, like I know that things aren't necessarily like super better today, but like I know that I was raised a whole hell of a lot better than that, and it's just disappointing that I know that there are probably men who are still like that, and it's frustrating. But like I said, as far as the movie is concerned, like I said, I think that Peterson does a fantastic job as Elvira. I think that character is iconic for a reason, and I think it's because of how well the character is written and how much fun the character brings. And I think that the movie itself, like I said, the practical effects that are in it, they hold up super well. Some of
that hand puppet monster thing that comes out of the stew is
so
super
good.
Cool.
And so gross when they put it in the sink and it's just spraying shit all over the place. Like, that's legitimately
just when she was
nasty.
making the stew, whatever they made that out of, I was like, it's so disgusting. And then they keep just having disgusting stew scenes for like the next 10 minutes. They get like a horny stew that makes all the townspeople get all horny for each other.
What were you saying? Some of them don't hold
So
up?
I think some of the digital effects, they kind of remind me of something like Big Trouble, where they kind of have that like that
It's like the
old
Sabrina
like
the Teenage
lightning
Witch TV show effects, where it's like just like sparklies and like whenever the what's the dog's name? Gonk.
Yeah,
Algonquin. When Gonk is like transforming and is the familiar. Loved the Gonk character, even though apparently that dog was the biggest challenge in the movie because he did not want to cooperate in any of the scenes, did not want to perform.
He's a little crusty-eyed white dog.
Would only respond to would only get happy or do anything when the trainer was like right there. So there are scenes in this movie that had to be completely dubbed over because they have the trainer right off screen, like shouting at the like not shouting at the dog, but like coaxing the dog, getting the dog to do what it needs to do. But what I did love is that Peterson refused to let them actually like dye the dog's fur for any extended period
I was
of
curious
time.
about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, no, you can't. So they had to use like a temporary vegetable dye that would wear off by the end of the day. So they had to like constantly be reapplying it, which I'm sure wasn't fun for the dog. But at least, you know, if you're going to be dyeing a dog's fur, like...
I've seen these shows. I think there's one on Max that's like Hot Dog. And they do that where it's like, let's decorate our dogs. I'm like, who's that for? Like, I get grooming for like a necessity reason, if your dog has long hair and shit, but don't dye your dog's hair. Like, that's for you. That's not for your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
One thing I didn't appreciate is having a tarantula held up in my face.
I was like, John could have got through this whole fucking movie, and then right at the very end,
Yeah,
she was
right
a
at the
little smooch.
fucking-
I was like, I ain't saying shit.
I was like, God damn it.
One of the all-time classic jokes that I see pop up all over the place, like before I had even seen this movie, is when she's walking outside the marquee and he drops the letter on her, and he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? How's your head?" And she's like, "I haven't had any complaints so far."
I was like, that's fucking funny, dude. Yeah.
And then, there's the very iconic tassel twirling scene at the end of the movie.
I was like, this is just to show off.
This is just talent, pure talent.
Thank God for tassels. That was something where, so for people who don't know, Cassandra Peterson started out very young, like 14 or something crazy, doing
burlesque
showgirl shows in Vegas, doing topless dancing. But at the time when she was underage, she couldn't do it completely topless, so she had her mom, and she couldn't do pasties because that was still inappropriate. So she had her mom design out of an old bikini that like bra top that has the tassels on it, and she like trained with one of the other dancers that she had worked with there, like an older dancer, to learn how to do the tassel twirling. And then she hadn't done it for years and years, but she really wanted to do it to cap off this movie. And she said it was just like riding a bike. Like as soon as she put the tassels on, she just got right back into the groove, and we're all thankful for it. Because yeah, I don't have any problem saying she's, like I said, fine wine, but she's gorgeous, and also just like because she's a powerful woman, like I'm just like, man, it just makes her even more attractive to me. And just also knowing like the character's progressive views, but also Peterson's progressive views, and especially at this time, like I just think she's awesome. And
she's had a pretty crazy life, not even just like the messed up stuff, but she's had a lot of really cool stuff, and that kind of thing happened to her. I mean, it's wild. I highly recommend the book. And if you are into audiobooks, don't feel like reading, then she does the audio for it. So it's her voice telling you.
I still have the audiobook, I think, on my Audible account, so I'm definitely going to finish it now, because this obviously got me like in the Elvira spirit.
Yeah.
And I would love if she came back with some sort of, because Joe Bob obviously has his very successful Shudder series with The Last Drive-In. If she wanted to come back, and I mean, I don't know if that's something she's interested in, or if she kind of wants to retire the Elvira character.
She owns the rights now to the character itself, so she can do
so
whatever she
make
wants.
that fucking bread, my dude.
She's supposed to be at Son of Monster Palooza in October.
I was thinking about that. I mean, sidebar about Son of Monster Palooza. I was thinking about like if I met Sam Raimi, I don't know. Like, that might be the most like emotional. Like I might legitimately cry, because I would have to tell him like, your movies have had such an impact on my life, like since before I knew like what a director really was, because,
or who your name was.
Yeah, because his Spider-Man movies were hugely influential in my life and my love of movies, and also just like my obsessive love of the Spider-Man character. Like, yeah, it comes from sort of from the 90s show, but mostly from those movies. And then to, as an adult, have the Evil Dead movies be some of my all-time favorite horror movies. And then, Darkman was something that I watched when I was a kid and freaked me the fuck out, and now I love that movie. And so, like, yeah, I think this is what I would be saying to him, and like trying to represent, like, dude, you have like altered the course of my life in a substantial way, and I can't thank you enough for that. But while I can't say that Elvira has altered the course of my life, I would like the future of my life to have more Elvira in it. And it kind of makes me sad that she only has the 2 movies. But I do want to go back and watch some of her older movie Macabre. I don't know how easy that stuff is to find.
You probably find clips and stuff. I'm sure there's probably restored VHS stuff on YouTube.
I texted you guys about it like months ago.
Yeah.
It's on something. It's on something like easily accessible where they have a ton of it.
Yeah, because I would want to watch that, and then... Because, yeah, even just she has the Messiah of Evil episode on. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Shudder. It's so confusing because she talks in the beginning about that how she did House on Haunted Hill and all these.
I know. I'm like, let's.
But when Shudder
fucking go.
loses the rights to stream those movies, they drop off the Joe Bob. So Joe Bob seasons will always have multiple episodes missing because when they lose the rights, they drop off. It's so fucking annoying. But I get it. But
Yeah.
it's just annoying. But anyway, yeah, I think this movie's
Yeah, recommend.
Awesome.
It's
Yeah.
campy. It's fun.
It's great.
Ridiculous, and it's got Cassandra Peterson.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
yeah. Take it about as seriously as Elvira takes herself, and you'll have a great time.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about the Masque of the Red Death. This one, yeah. If you don't know, it's based on 2 stories by Edgar Allan Poe, which I did not know. The other one being Hop Frog,
Yeah.
and this one stars Vincent Price and
yeah.
Hazel Court and Jane Asher, and it's by Roger Corman. He directed it. Written by Charles Beaumont and R. Wright Campbell.
Do you think if
You think Campbell's all right?
you think if Jane gets a little bit cold, she becomes a Jane Brasher?
Come on. Come on. Because that's your last name, John.
I'm aware.
Okay, cool. Well, this is pretty different than the Masque of the Red Death story, isn't it? Isn't it more the
Yeah,
Masque of the Red Death just like at the party? And it's pretty straightforward. Like, we're at the party and someone brings the plague, and then we all die.
Yeah. My review for this was, these are the most colorful COVID flashbacks I've ever had. So yeah, this is typical for the Corman Poe movies because the stories that he's basing these on are so short that getting even an 80 to 90 minute movie out of them would be quite difficult. So they tend to either expand the story with a bunch of made up shit, like the Raven movie is the biggest. I don't know if I want to say offender because I like that movie. It's a lot of fun, but it has like the basic premise of the Raven at the very beginning, and then it's like, turns out the Raven is a sorcerer who's Peter Lorre trapped in a raven's body, and then he and Vincent Price go on comedic hijinks, and but he tends to throw in other Poe stories to kind of flesh that out. So the whole plot about the little person jester character or whatever in this, Toad Hop or whatever his name is.
The 2 dancer, the dancer, and then like the
Prancer, yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah, that was really weird. There's like a little ass girl.
yeah,
But
so
she's not supposed to be a little girl.
So I was very confused about this because I wasn't sure if his voice was dubbed. Apparently not, from what I read, but then I knew for sure hers was, and I was
Yeah.
like, that is not a little person. That is a child.
Right.
Who has makeup on to make them look like an adult.
And when I looked it up, it was like, yes, this is a child with her voice dubbed over by a woman so that she can be the bride of this other character. And that I found extremely legitimately creepy.
Yeah, it was really weird.
So don't like that.
I don't know what the reasoning was.
I don't know if it was just because the budget was so low they could only find and hire one little person.
Yeah.
Very weird. But so there's that whole subplot about him trying to get revenge on one of the characters because he slapped the dude's wife. And so that is all part of an actual historical event that happened where a bunch of aristocrats dressed up in orangutan costumes for a ball. And then a bunch of them, they all caught fire during the ball, and 4 of them died. And it's like a infamous historical event. I forget which royalty it was one of the millions of dumb royal people. But the main story is Vincent Price is this fucked up Satanist Prince
Prospero.
Yes.
And he
There's been an outbreak of the Red Death at a village nearby. He offers people a sanctuary in his castle, steals 3 of them, father, his daughter, and her fiance, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
The man she loves.
Yeah, and he wants her to be his bride.
Yeah, and
Corrupt her, mostly.
And I thought the fact that she had
Mostly.
red hair was obviously intentional.
A red herring.
Hand-me-down robes. But then anybody else who comes to the castle after that, he brutally tells to fuck off and kill themselves.
Or literally kills them.
Yeah, because he doesn't want the Red Death to get into the castle, and then he decides that in order to kind of entertain everybody who is now stuck in the castle, he's going to hold a masquerade ball. Everybody is allowed to dress up in whatever wardrobe they find around the castle, but nobody's
long as
allowed
it's
to wear
not
red.
red.
Which was very confusing
But
to me because there's a lot of people
Hell of
wearing
people
red
are
at
wearing.
the dance.
There's just one dude in all red, but I was like, as he was walking through, I was like, "That's red. That's red. That's red." Like,
Yeah, and then he makes a statement. He's like, "Who's that person in red? I explicitly told nobody could dress in red." And I'm like, "There's literally people dancing on both sides of you with red on." I was like,
whatever.
Was that just because you didn't have enough costumes and some of them ended up being red? Like, some of these things I have to be like, remind myself, this was a very low budget. It was shot in the UK specifically so they could get British tax breaks. So like the guy who did the special effects in the movie, like, or the producer or something, like, didn't actually get credited because he was American and they needed to credit a British person to get the tax break. So all kinds of, that's classic Roger Corman, trying to get the most out of the least amount of money that he was given for the project. I think this is the biggest of his Poe movies, though, in terms of like lavishness and scope.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They all have great sets, but it's typically because they're reusing sets from other productions, and that was also the case here. And
I think the only other one I've seen is Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah, I don't. My favorite. I don't know. They're all pretty good, but
And you're a big Poe boy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a Poe boy. Yeah, I mean, I think that while Mask of the Red Death may not be my like very most favorite Poe story, I still feel like it speaks a lot to Poe's experience in his life, and I think that this does a good job of like taking that and expanding it and making it something that is pretty intelligible for the entire runtime. It adds, like all these little bits of flavor, and we really get to dig into Prospero and this like Satanist, like basically cult that he's cultivating in his court. And I think that it's a fantastic performance by Price. I mean, I think that his voice and the way that he delivers lines is just so fucking iconic. I mean, I melt like
40,000 years.
I just melt like a little pat of butter on some fucking French toast.
Yeah,
I always just hear him saying, "It's okay, you can laugh" from Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Like, God, it gets me every time. Or Radigan.
Yeah.
I think was my first experience to Price.
Great mouse
I think
detective,
Scissorhands was probably my first exposure to him. But yeah, I mean, part of why we wanted to do this and Elvira was just because these are two icons of horror that we haven't really spent too much time with throughout the course of the show. And
We
also
did a little bit of The Fly, but that's not really even that much of a Price movie.
No,
Yeah.
misleading, because I think a lot of people think it is, and then he's only kind of a little bit in it. But really, if you want to get like pure distilled Price, then watching this Poe Corman cycle of movies.
House on Haunted Hill is fucking fantastic, dude.
But I love how he's able to play these characters who, on the one hand, can be like completely terrifying and ruthless, but then in the next scene be like so soft spoken and like, how could you ever think that this guy could do anything evil? Like, he's so gentlemanly and put together and that soft voice, and it just lulls you into the sense of comfort so that he can turn around and stab you in the back.
But like, so when the Red Death shows up at the party and like they're having this conversation and he's like trying to remove the mask, and and Death is saying, you can't see what my face looks like until you know that it's over. And then
Death has no face but but yours at the moment of your own death. Or some cool line like that.
Yeah, and going through the party and everything, and like people are all being like infected essentially with Red Death, and then they get to the point where it's his turn to have his conversation with Death, and he like in that moment like essentially in a way sort of sacrifices himself for her, which I think is pretty cool. Like he's like run to the battlements and is really talks about like how much like he cares about her in this moment. And I think that it's interesting for that character who you've seen so much like anger and turmoil.
Well, the Red Death even says that, where he's like, "Oh,
manipulation." Like, he's a dick.
But the Red Death is like, "Oh, you're like thinking about someone, something like thinking about someone other than yourself, like a selfless act that's very unlike you, Prospero."
Yeah.
All of that stuff between him and the Red Death is super cool. Like, I just love that scene when they go into the dark room that just has the red window behind it. Just the way that this movie is. All of the Poe Corman stuff is very like garishly designed and colored, and that kind of is what's the fun of it. But this really obviously, because it's
like
all
these
about
giallo
color.
feels, yeah.
Yeah, and then when you see the end of the movie with the reveal of all of these
Deaths
of different disease that represent different diseases.
Is that what that is? At first, I was like, okay, these are the 4 horsemen.
Yeah, they're like the Power Rangers of fucked up viruses.
Yeah, somebody has like a theory online that has like all of these deaths
like
listed
the yellow
out.
Fever, the Red Death, the Black Death. There's like a jaundice. Like there's a bunch of random ones, but
I know that I don't think Red Death like directly depicts tuberculosis, because I think that's actually considered with the White Death in this specifically. But I mean, I with as much as tuberculosis impacted Poe's life in multiple ways, losing multiple people throughout his lifetime, I imagine that this is what the allegory was.
What was that? Consumption? Was that what they?
I have a bit of the gumption.
Yeah,
for my constituents.
I got the gumption. Yeah, obviously, like he had multiple loved ones pass away from tuberculosis, so obviously this was a very personal story, and you can draw the parallel to the Black Death and all of that. But yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be a specific real world disease, and it's described as you bleed from your pores and you go insane and manic. And I love the way that it's represented in this movie with the Red Death going by and sweeping. Transitions don't 100% work all the time.
The first one's good, and the other ones are. I'm like, okay,
but I mean, I think there's not much else you can do in an age where you can't immediately see the footage back.
Yeah, but having the people dancing, and then it's the cape sweeps over them, or it zooms into the robe, and then they're just covered in blood. And then when he sees the Red Death as him, like when he has that Luke Skywalker moment of like busting open the Darth Vader helmet and seeing it's him, and like, oh shit, this is what that dude meant when he said the face of death was my face.
And then they all just like fall in this weird domino effect. It almost kind of reminded me of like a scene from Climax.
Yeah,
dude, I had the exact same thought. I was like, Climax probably, like if Masque of the Red Death wasn't the movie, one of the movies on the side of the TV when they have the interviews in the beginning, then it should have been.
Yeah,
it seemed like a huge influence. But yeah, I love just like the dread of the Red Death, and I think because we went through a pandemic, like it
feels a little
any
more
of these
close
kind
to
of
home.
movies are going to feel a little bit more close to home, even if the setting and the way people are dressed and the way they speak is not even remotely modern day. I think that
we could use more people speaking like Vincent Price in our life. I think that's full true.
Hell yeah. And also, I thought it was interesting when I was looking at the Red Death in the beginning of the movie, and you have like the old lady wander up to him, and then he gives her the flower. I was like, oh, is that like a Ring Around the Rosie
pocket full of posies?
There's the whole, I don't know how true it is, but the idea that Ring Around the Rosie as a song is referring to the Black Death and how the sores look, and then the pocket full of posies, like you carry around like flowers and things that smell good because you're smelling death everywhere. So I was like, oh, is that a cute little reference? But that scene, I was like, this reminds me so much of the Seventh Seal.
That's what I thought at the end with all the hooded figures.
Yeah, and it turns out that's why this ended up being the 7th of 8 post-cycle movies that Corman did. He wanted to do it toward the beginning, but he was so convinced that people would think he was ripping off was ripping off the Seventh Seal and Ingmar Bergman, that he kept pushing it, and then finally he realized that he was just like psyching himself out about it, and that if he did it right, people wouldn't necessarily think he was ripping that off.
Are they that close together?
I don't really think so, outside of the idea that...
I mean, like...
the Seventh Seal is about playing chess with death, and there's a hooded figure that is death. Like, all of that stuff feels very reminiscent, but I don't think it would be a stretch to say that that's not very far from how Poe describes it in the story Masque of the Red Death.
Yeah.
I did have that thought, though, so I'm glad that I wasn't just fucking completely...
Yeah, no, the Climax thing and the Seventh Seal thing dawned on me, so I was glad that, like, just like the Empire State of Mind thing, like, I wasn't crazy. Somebody else thought the same thing that I did, but... I think that the Red Death is so cool looking too, like with the red painted face and hands where you can't even really see who it is in there, even before he has the like weird fluffy mask on. And I was convinced that this was Christopher Lee's voice.
Dude, no, me too.
And
so
he's in parentheses maybe credited on the Wikipedia page. It says played by this actor, and then in parentheses suspected to be the voice of Christopher Lee.
That's fucking crazy.
So it's really interesting because he also did a reading a long time ago of Poe's Masque of the Red Death, like basically like an audiobook version of Christopher Lee doing a full reading of the story. So it totally would make sense if they did.
Well, one, I need to listen to that, and two, I could not find any concrete information. I
was like, that's got it. So when it wasn't him, I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, I looked it up, and some people were like, no, it's actually that actor's voice, and he just happens to sound like Christopher Lee. I was like, because really, especially at the beginning, I was convinced that they had gotten him in uncredited to do the voiceover for that, but it may be one of those things where it happened.
In the time
we'll
frame, I was like, that's when Lee was kind of doing his Universal thing. Like, it would make sense.
Yeah. If he just, came in and lent his voice a little bit to a brief part of the role.
From one icon to another.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that's my headcanon, is that the Red Death was Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that's executed really well. I do really, really like the all the different deaths meeting up in the end and kind of discussing like, well, I put to sleep this many people in my village, and I did this in my village. It's creepy and cool.
But I like the twist on that the Red Death describes what he's done by describing the people he's left alive. Yeah. I think it's a fun twist. I don't think it doesn't do anything other than add like
just a little bit of
intrigue,
like a little twist on that character where you go, ooh, he's unknowable. Like I don't really understand what his motivations and machinations are, because it seems like the rest of them are just about killing people.
Yeah,
and it seems like he has some sort of, or it or whatever has some sort of goal of like bringing retribution to people who deserve it or something like that. Like he has some sort of ulterior motive. But I love that conversation he has with Prospero about where Prospero's like, but I
worship Satan.
I worship Satan. Like
we have a pact.
Yeah, and he's like, there's no other god. Blah 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 blah. And the Red Death is like, he's like, yeah, death like serves no master, has no god. Like we're in a completely different realm from all that cumin bullshit that you're concerned with. Like
say cumin.
Cumin bullshit. That cumin bullshit. Yeah. That human bullshit that you have like obsessed your life over, like kind of saying, none of that means anything and none of that's real. When real sickness and disease, pestilence comes, no one can escape it.
You gotta ride the wings.
Yeah. One thing, and I talked to you guys about it, but I'll mention it here, and this might make me sound stupid or whatever, but I didn't realize that the Lord of Flies is a reference to Satan. And so that book, The Lord of the Flies, I guess is referencing that. Beelzebub.
Well, yeah.
Beelzebub.
You might,
yeah, and I was like, oh, shit.
Because he starred in it, you could call Vincent Price the Lord of the Fly.
And that's going to wrap it up for today's show.
But yeah, Beelzebub is like, the Hebrew or whatever, I'm sure there is a legit way to pronounce that, but it means Lord of Flies. And I think I learned that because I had just been watching some video on YouTube about the devil or something, and I was like, oh shit, that makes so much sense. Did you read Lord of the Flies in high school?
I think that I was supposed to and didn't, and then read it later as an adult.
Okay, because I was curious. Anybody who read Lord of the Flies in high school, tell us if your teachers explained that to you, or if you understood that when you were in high school. Because
there's a chance they did, and I just wasn't paying attention because I was like,
well, yeah, because I was just in the my coursework didn't I went from regular classes to AP classes, and so I skipped out on some of the books I would have read in those early first 2 years, and then skipped over to some other different ones. So I missed Lord of the Flies. So I've still never read it, and I haven't seen the movie. I know what the plot is, but
I think I did the same thing because I ended up doing. I wasn't AP, but I skipped regular CP literature,
prep.
and it ended up going into
I didn't know any of these letters fucking mean.
Honors literature. In my senior year, and I think that's where I missed it.
Yeah,
I'm in the firm camp of D's get degrees,
which is crazy because now you're such a big book nerd.
Yeah,
with a degree in books.
I do it on my time.
Yeah,
not when someone tells me to do it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that is what turns a lot of people off of reading is being told what to read. But yeah, let us know if that ever dawned on you. It has nothing to do with Masque of the Red Death, but if you've read the story Masque of the Red Death and you've seen this version. Do you like that it adds so much to the story? Do you feel that it ends up being too padded? It's not a very long movie, and like John said, I think that everything ties together well enough that it doesn't feel like you wasted time with any individual characters. Though, because I love Price so much and his performance in this, I do think I would have liked to have seen a movie that was like if you just completely removed the Francesca character from this movie, because to me she just seemed like no offense to Jane Asher, I don't really know her as an actor that well, but she did nothing for me in this movie and seemed kind of just like there to be, I guess, the audience surrogate of like, this guy's doing fucked up things and I'm horrified and shocked, and then eventually by the end she's like, I don't care anymore about gorilla men lit on fire on chandeliers. And it's supposed to, I guess she's supposed to be like the pure good that survives against Price's evil, but I was like, nah, just give us all that time with Price. Don't give us the subplot with Hop Toad Foot Man and his wife and his weird underage child bride. Just give us Price, just going around a cool costume ball and watching people die. But I understand that would not make a good 90-minute movie. So
I kind of like the Francesca character. I think that at the end the description that Prospero gives of Francesca as being like the only equal he's ever met in faith, I think it's an interesting
Just
take.
in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I like when she's in the tub and she's covering herself up, and I think that moment is really impactful because she's like, I want my modesty. I have this faith. I am a strong believer in this. And he's like, no, I'm fucking gonna corrupt you. Like, just wait. Mm-hmm. And so I really like that. But then, I think as the movie goes on, I'm like, I don't really care about you. Like, I just wanted to see where this was going and see what Price was gonna do. And for me, it was kind of that beginning part with her that I really liked. And then, toward the end, where it was like, we're equals, just on opposite ends. Yeah. And you're kind of my only redeeming quality. And we almost feel sympathy for him toward the end a little bit. And it's like, should I feel like this? Because you're kind of just a dick.
I think it's just because we're all charmed by.
I was going to say, like, I was trying to figure out, like, how sorry should I feel for him? And I was like, it's just because it's Vincent Price. And so I feel sorry for him in this movie. But, I think that's the challenge with anything that has Vincent Price in it, is as soon as you cut to other more boring actors, your movie is just not going to be as good or interesting to watch.
It ain't gonna stack up.
Yeah, and all of the Poe movies kind of have that problem of like, when he's on screen, you're completely glued and you love everything that's happening, and then when it cuts to the more boring white bread actors and actresses around him, again, no offense to these people, but like, it's fucking Vincent Price. Like, it's going to be hard to have that animal magnetism and that charm that this man had. And I think it's so cool that we were able to get something like Scissorhands and that relationship between him and Burton later on that really, I think, connected the like Price era of horror to a more modern audience. And
did definitely for me.
Yeah, and because of that, we're like, oh, who is this guy? And then being able to go back and see him young and dashing is always fun. I don't think that I've seen a Vincent Price movie that I hated.
That's good.
Can't think of one off the top of my head.
All right, anything else you want to add about Masque?
I don't know. I think I said
Masque, but I did want to say real quick about Elvira because I forgot to mention this. So the old lady
who lives in the shoe,
the really old lady, I forget her name. I think it's the mom of I think Rachel or whatever, the one that helps paint the house.
They own the hotel or whatever.
Yeah, and at the end, it's the one that they call what guy calls an old bag.
Yeah.
I spent half the movie being like, where the fuck do I recognize this lady from? And it was driving me absolutely nuts. So I finally go on Letterboxd and I clicked on her name, and I was scrolling through her filmography, and I was like, no way, because it shows like it grays out the movies that I've seen, so I know like, okay, so I've seen that. The only one that was grayed out was Ben Affleck's Daredevil, and I realized she is the woman that's sitting next to Colin Farrell's Bullseye on the plane, like yapping. And I don't know if you guys how well you remember this movie, but she's yapping to him on the plane, and he like gets his little bag of airplane peanuts out, and he like puts one down, and he like
and flicks it
and it goes into her throat, and she like suffocates and dies. And then he like leans her head on his shoulder, and when the stewardess comes by, she's like, oh, so sweet, she's sleeping, do you need anything else? And he just goes, more peanuts, please. And that's like part of his intro. Yeah, and for some reason that just like stuck in my head, and her face for those like 10 seconds she was on screen, so it was driving me nuts for this entire movie. I was like, where do I know her from? She got
and we're
killed
sorry.
by Bullseye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're sorry that you remember that.
That's how my brain works. Like, if I recognize somebody, like, it could even be from 20 years ago.
Right. All right, cool. Well, that'll wrap it up for our
Penultimate episode.
Second to last episode. Yeah, we hope that you enjoyed that. Next week, we're going to do a little reminiscing, a little storytelling, have a good time. And hopefully we get you YouTubers, a Wings episode of us doing the old hot one. So that'll be YouTube exclusive. So if you're listening to this on audio format, then go check that out. At least one video to see probably me die and you guys be pretty okay.
I mean, if we decided to kind of do like a Romeo and Juliet and John sort of situation at the end of this, and we all decided to kind of, kill ourselves through poisonous hot sauce, I'd be kind of cool with that. That's poetic.
That's how it ends.
Not with a whimper, with a, oh my god, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, and just shit everywhere. Anyway, so stay tuned for that, and thank you so much for checking out this episode. We will see you next week. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
And I have been the funk of 40,000 years. And your internet daddy, your internet darling. The price is always right. It's Anthony.
Oh, thanks again.
Keep it creepy.